The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. My name is Rob Deininger, and I'm here, as always, with Jack Degraw, and we are talking Yankees baseball. How you doing, Jack?
Good. How are you today, Robert?
Not too bad. Yankees were supposed to have their opener Thursday, but they played yesterday and got the victory in extra innings.
Yeah, opening day is always a big thrill. I mean, I seen the Yankees play the Red Sox opening day in 1970, and like yesterday's game. Anytime you beat the Red Sox on opening day and a great comeback, it's a great day to be a Yankee fan.
Yeah, and I think there was something like 44,000 plus there at the stadium yesterday, which is pretty impressive considering it was a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, the fans, they're looking forward to seeing some good baseball with the Yankees, and I'm sure they'll have a good season.
Yeah, and I'll never get used to this extra inning rule where you start the runner at second, but I'm glad they came through in extra innings. Josh Donaldson, I think, had the game-winning hit.
Yeah. I hate that runner on second too. That's ridiculous, and the shift has got to go. Yeah, I mean, we were talking off air, having Donaldson bat leadoff is kind of a surprise, but he came through yesterday.
Yeah, they got LeMahieu batting fifth again today, which, I'm fine with it, because he is a hell of a hitter, and maybe he'll have more opportunities to drive in runs this year than he did last year, because last year the bottom of the lineup didn't get many guys on base, and, LeMahieu had a down year for him.
Yeah, I think having him in the fifth spot, you get a lot of, you get Stanton and Judge and Gallo and Rizzo, they start striking out. You don't have, when they go in the slumps, you have somebody in the middle of the lineup who hits the ball all over. And, you get some guys on base. He can come up with some clutch hits. And another thing, Robert, I like that they had Hicks batting seventh. Yeah. And Hicks isn't in the lineup today. And Michael Kay said that if there's one guy that's going to sit a lot this year, it will be Aaron Hicks. They plan on having Judge play center so they can get Stanton in right field, especially when they're at Yankee Stadium. Yeah, I mean, I seen Stanton and Wright down here in Tampa for a couple games, and he looked good. I mean, he threw out a runner at third. He just missed throwing a runner out at home, and he played all those years in the National League, so he'll do a good job in the outfield. He played well last year in the outfield, and he hit better when he was playing out there. Yeah,
his game took off when they started playing him in left because of the injuries, and he even came out and said last year that he preferred playing in the outfield.
Yeah, I think a guy like that, I mean, they'll say the right things, but being a DH, and he's still fairly young, he was a good outfielder in the National League. So I'm sure he'd rather be out in the outfield.
And they got Anthony Rizzo batting third, which I like. I mean, he had a nice 2-run homer yesterday, and I think he'll have a better year this year, being this is his first full year with the Yankees. He's probably more comfortable.
Yeah, and he's got the guys around him who will protect him. He'll be popular in New York. I think he's really smooth at first base. I mean, you see him live, he's really smooth.
Yeah, and I think he grew up in Long Island, so he's a native New Yorker. And like you said, he's got Judge batting in front of him and Stanton batting behind him. So, he's got some protection and lineup around him, and I think you'll see him have a better year at the plate this year for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a typical Yankee team. They'll hit a lot of home runs, they'll score a lot of runs, and I believe they'll win a lot of games.
Yeah, and given the makeup of their roster, they can do a number of different things with their lineup. With the infield and outfield. I mean, like today they got LeMahieu playing third base and Donaldson DH and Torres playing second.
Yeah, I think that they want to get LeMahieu in the lineup as much as possible, and Torres. So some guys are going to have to jump around, and Torres hit well in the spring, but he might not play as much as he's played in previous years.
And like we were talking off there, the one thing I didn't like during the pregame yesterday was when they were talking to their new shortstop, and he didn't come out and say it, but he basically said he'll be splitting time with Gleyber Torres at short, and I'm not sure I want to see Torres playing shortstop that much, during the season. I think, like you said, 20-25 games is fine, but anything more than that, I don't think it would sit well at Mayor or a lot of fans.
No. I seen him in spring. He played well the few games I seen him. But, you don't want to see him out there for a lot of games. 20-25 games is good. This guy, Felifa, they got from the Twins, he's a young guy. He can hit. He can cover ground. And another thing I liked, that Marwin Gonzalez. He played for the Astros. This guy can play all over. So, he'll play.
You play the infield and some of the outfield, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a good pickup.
Yeah, because of him, they didn't have a room for, what was this guy, Lacastra? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah. He's optioned to AAA, but this guy Gonzalez is supposed to be really good, especially defensively. And if he can, hit, have a good year at the plate, that's just a plus.
Yeah, in 2017 with the Astros, he had a big season, and he's not a great hitter, but he can play all over. So that's a big upgrade.
Yeah, I like Tyler Wade, but Wade just couldn't get it done at the plate, and they gave him multiple years to try to turn it around, and it never happened.
Yeah, he's better out there with the Angels, and he'll get a shot. He's close to home, and Tyler Wade's the kind of guy he'll have a 12, 13-year career in the major league. So good luck to him with the Angels.
And the other the giant story is that Aaron Judge, turned down the 7-year, $213 million contract, which basically would have paid him like roughly $30.5 million per season.
Yeah, this is one of the things, like the lockout was about, the guys at the beginning of their career, young guys, when they're productive, they don't get compensated for it. Then they reach a certain age when they're 29, 30, 31, and they get the long-term contracts. And towards the end, they're not as productive. Right now with Judge, he's the face of the Yankees and one of the faces of baseball, and just the publicity he gets, all positive.
Oh, yeah.
He's a super kid, and the T-shirts he sells, and just the promotions promotional items. I'm sure they'll work out something.
Yeah, because even though he's not the captain, he's the unofficial captain. Everyone considers him the next captain of the Yankees. He's so important. Like you said, the face of the Yankees, even baseball. And they can't afford to let him walk away in free agency.
No, I think when they sign him, I think he goes to arbitration this year.
Yeah, I think he got $17 million this year, something like that.
Yeah, and he wanted 21. You think they could meet in the middle or something.
Yeah.
But the arbitration is not till June, so I think maybe they still have the June to work something out.
Okay.
And I think they'll probably see how he's playing, and then they'll wind up offering him a bigger contract, and hopefully he'll, finish his career with the Yankees, because you don't want to lose a guy like that.
No, and the thing that I didn't like was Brian Cashman coming out and divulging the terms of the contract they offered him. I don't know why he felt he had to go do that. I think it would be better if you would keep that quiet. There's no need to go to the press and say what you offered him and what he turned down.
Well, I think one of the things is when people hear how much you're making, oh, well, if I got that much money, I wouldn't complain just for playing baseball. But I don't think a lot of fans consider how much are the owners making.
Billions.
And I mean, they give all these new contracts. I mean, Robert, you wouldn't believe just spring training, what some people pay for tickets.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, like, I went to 9 games this year for $109. So I don't have any reason to complain. But I know how to work this. I know how to work it. But, I mean, you walk to the box office, and it's like, $58, $70, for a friggin' spring training game that the regulars are going to play 3 innings.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this a lot over the years. I mean, just during the regular season to try to take a family of 4 to a game, it can cripple you financially.
Yeah, I mean, even the park in spring training. My friend, he $15 to park.
Jesus. And
this is spring training.
Yeah. My
and
God.
the price of the beer, and the hot dogs, and the soda. I mean, I buy a soda for $5, and that's it. But you could buy if you like to drink, you could buy a beer and a hot dog. That could set you back $15.
Yeah. Oh my God. And it was so much cheaper, right? Back in the day. I mean, it was almost nothing to go to a spring training game, right?
Well, when I first went in 2005, after the disaster of 2004, the season tickets for like 18 games was like, $215. And back then that was a lot. Yeah. But I mean, you would go to Lakeland, St. Pete, which was a beautiful ballpark, Allang Field, and you'd go to Dunedin and Lakeland, and you could still get in for $6 or $8. And unfortunately, those days are long gone.
Yeah, but these owners, I mean, no one talks about, the owners don't divulge how much money they bring in, but they bring in billions through their TV contracts. And they, and the players, the salaries have gone down. And I hate the fact that they have team control over young players for 6 years or more. Sometimes it hurts them. Yeah.
And, eventually, it's not going to kill the sport. I shouldn't say kill the sport, but it's going to the younger generation growing up is just not going to care about it.
No,
they're not.
I mean, even.
Go ahead.
Even today, the average age of a fan are people in our generation, or our age. They're not bringing in that younger generation. They hope they would.
Yeah, and I just noticed going to the spring training games down here, you don't see kids. You don't see people in their 20s and 30s. You see mostly, older people. And you'll see some young fans, but it's mostly older people. They're the ones that can afford the tickets, and you're losing a generation. Yeah, and I tell you that one of the things that I really hate about baseball is the shift, especially the extreme shift. I think if you kept 2 guys to the left, a second, 2 guys to the right, I think it would open up more offense. More runs, more hits, be a little bit more exciting to watch. Well, I seen Hicks go the other way this spring, and Robert, when some guys get up, there is nobody playing short or third base.
Yeah,
there's nobody.
Yeah,
there's not even one guy there.
Yeah, and sometimes they'll put another guy in the outfield, so you'll have 4 guys in the outfield.
Yeah, I remember when I was watching Gallo. He got up the one time. There was nobody on, the shortstop side of the infield, and he still got a hit. But there was like 5 guys out there. It looked like softball, when they have a short fielder.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
And for the people that are for the shift, they always say, well, they should hit the other way. But when you got pitchers throwing 95 to 98 miles an hour, it's not like you can put the ball where you want. You're just trying to swing to make contact.
No, and I mean, like, the pitchers don't go deep in the game. So most of the time, everybody's coming in and they can throw in the mid to high 90s. It's just like one after the other.
Yeah, and I mean, look at Gerrit Cole led the American League in wins last year, and he only had 16. It's because a lot of these times these guys, they're pulled in the fourth, and some, and other guys the fifth. I mean, and they don't qualify for wins anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, even with this year, I mean, they only had 18 spring training games, and how many innings can these guys pitch?
Yeah.
It's like the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, it's just like an extended spring training for pitchers. So
yeah, and I think the Yankees are carrying 16 pitchers for that reason.
Yeah, because I mean, how many innings can you pitch? I mean, I think Cole only pitched 9 or 10 innings this spring.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Sevy pitched maybe 13 or 14, and as we were talking off air, Robert, Severino, the last 3 years, has only thrown 18 innings in the big leagues.
Yeah, I mean, and I think today will be Severino's first start since 2019 of Game 3 of the American League Championship Series. So, it'll be interesting to see how he starts out the season. He's got to build up that arm strength because he only pitched, I think, 6 innings last year.
Yeah, I mean, I seen him last Saturday against the Braves, and he looked good. He really looked good. He pitched like 4 innings. He got in the 4th inning, and he looked really good. He looked like the Sevy, in 2018. But how many innings can he give you this year?
Yeah, I mean, he's got great stuff, but like you said, I mean, really hasn't pitched in quite some time, so it could take him. Like James Taillon last year, he, his first half of the season wasn't that great, but in the second half, he actually pitched a lot better. I think he went after the All-Star break, he went 4-2 with an ERA of 3.5. And in the first half, he was 8-6 with an ERA of almost 4.5. So he lowered his ERA by a full run in the second half last year because he needed time to build up that arm strength.
Yeah, I think him and Cole he worked with Cole a little bit last year, but
yeah,
a lot of these guys, the last 3 years, has been they haven't had regular spring trainings, and the reason is spring training is so long. It's because of the pitcher.
Yeah, and like even Jordan Montgomery, he had a better second half last year than the first, along with Taillon. A lot of guys last year got better as the season went on.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting, how are they going to pitch? What's their pitch count?
Yeah.
I mean, the games I've seen in spring training, I mean, I see Montgomery pitch, Severino pitch, and that's it. Cortez, most of the time, it was guys just trying to, relievers trying to make the team. So they really didn't get a lot of action. So it's going to be interesting.
We were talking off air, and I told you what Severino was talking to Susan Waldman, or one of the Yankees broadcasters, and he said he was worried about his last start. He was scared that he might injure himself. And when you hear a pitcher say he was worried about injuring himself, I just wonder how healthy Severino is, or if he's just worried that he hasn't pitched in a while and he might get injured. But either way, it was a little unsettling to hear him say that.
Well, I think, once you've had an injury, it's like always in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
And you're just always concerned that, can this be the day I get hurt again? And, it's a tough mental thing to overcome.
Yeah. And the Yankees bullpen, I think it's pretty good. I was looking at some of the pitchers, like Jonathan Loaiza last year had a great year. He had an ERA of 2.17. Lucas Letri, is that his name? The lefty? He had an ERA of under 3 at 2.74. Nestor Cortez had an ERA of 2.90. So they have some guys that can come out of the bullpen, and they got Clark Schmidt this year made the team, and I heard that he looked pretty good during spring training.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll see these guys like, the first month of the season, or maybe for a good portion of the season, they'll have like guys will come in and pitch 2 or 3 innings, and they'll keep, piecing it together, because I don't think the starters right now are capable of going more than 4 innings.
Yeah. And I forgot about Michael King too. He's another one coming out of the pen that's pretty good.
Yeah, he pitched yesterday. I believe he got the win.
Yeah. Yep. And I guess Zach Britton's still on the team, but he's on the 60-day DL, along with Domingo Germán.
Yeah, I think Britton's gone for the year.
Yeah.
And if he does come back, I don't think he'll just be in the minor leagues rehab, and that was a big loss because he's an excellent pitcher.
Yeah, and Germán, I mean, I really like Germán. I mean, when he's on, he's a really good pitcher. I mean, he had that 18-game, won 18 games that one season, and even last year he showed flashes. He almost had that no-hitter against Boston last year. Yeah,
and that's another game the bullpen blew.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were telling me, Robert, it's a shoulder injury he has?
Yeah, they said it was a shoulder issue. I guess during the lockout he was working out, and I guess he did something to his shoulder. It doesn't require surgery or anything, but they just called it a shoulder issue. You know how the Yankees don't like to divulge too much information when it comes to injuries.
Yeah, who knows when we'll see him? Maybe late June, around the All-Star break.
But I guess as of now, Nestor Cortez will take that 5th spot in the rotation.
Yeah, well, he steps in there. I mean, I like watching that guy. He's an old-fashioned pitcher.
Yeah,
he mixes it up.
Yeah, his delivery. I notice it when he pitches, his delivery changes depending on who's at bat.
Yeah, he's a fun pitcher to watch.
Yeah,
old pitcher.
And this year I think they project the Yankees to win 87 games. I mean, if they stay healthy and their rotation can get better as the year goes along, I think it's doable. I just, I have a lot. Me personally, I have a lot of question marks with the starting rotation.
Yeah, there's reason it's concern. I mean, I think there'll be, 87 is a possibility, but I think they can win 93, 94 games, in the playoff. But, we'll have to see, how the pitching plays out. And I'm sure at some point this year, Cashman will make a deal, to acquire more pitching. Oh,
yeah. Because the one thing I'm worried about, and I know a lot of fans are, is Gerrit Cole, because he was lights out in the first half last season, and then when they cracked down on the sticky substance, the spider tack, his second half wasn't all that great. He went 7-4, was an ERA over 4, and then in September his ERA jumped over 5. And, of course, in that wild card game, he got knocked out early. I think he only pitched 2 innings. So, a lot of fans are worried, are we getting to Gerrit Cole from the first half of last season, or a guy who just throws really hard?
Yeah, I think, the sticky stuff, substance, that's an issue. I mean, maybe he's just not the pitcher we think he is. I mean, I still think he's an outstanding pitcher, but maybe last year in the second half, the innings caught up to him. I know he threw a couple complete games. He went late in the games, and maybe that took a toll on the arm. So we'll have to see, because they're not ready to pitch yet.
Oh no, and then there's Severino, who he's got electric stuff, but hasn't pitched that much, and he's been hurt a few different times the last few years. Jordan Montgomery, I've been waiting for him to take that next step the last few years. I mean, he's got good stuff, but, we need him to pitch a little bit better than he has been. And James Taillon, I'm still not sure what we got in him if he's just a slightly above a 500 pitcher. So my biggest question, I know the score runs. For me, it's the starting pitching because I like their bullpen.
Yeah, well, hopefully a guy like Michael King and Clark Schmidt will step up. And, I like Loiza. I think he's solid.
Oh, yeah.
But, and there was another guy that pitched well in the spring. He's in AAA now, Manny Vanuelos.
Oh, yeah, and I've heard of him, yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the killer bees years ago. They had Betances, Vanuelos, and Andrew Brackman.
Is he a lefty?
Yeah. He pitched, I seen him pitch, Robert. He pitched 9 scoreless innings in the spring, and then the other day they tried to get him into the 4th inning against the Tigers, and he got hit around a little bit. So I think at some point we'll see him sooner than later. I think he'll be brought up shortly.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see who the Yankees might use, like in a setup a setup role in front of Chapman. I think someone like Loiza would be perfect, but man, he has great stuff. Yeah,
and I think at some point you might even see Loiza close some games because every year Chapman, it used to be like he'd have a bad stretch for a week or two. But now those bad stretches are lasting a little bit longer. So, I still think he's a good pitcher, but I don't think he's the lights out guy.
And Loiza last year only gave up 3 home runs. I mean, and in 70.2 innings, he only gave up 56 hits. Loiza, he's lights out pretty much. I remember when he first came up as a starter, they used him, to fill in for a starter, and he went, I think it was like 7-0 in 9 starts. And since then, they moved him to the bullpen, where he's just been lights out coming out of the pen.
Yeah, so I think at some point, I think he might even close. Or if they get desperate, he might, start some games.
Yeah, and I hope Davy Garcia has a bounce back year at AAA because last year it was like he just forgot how to pitch or his mechanics were messed with because he did not have a good year last year, and he was one of their top prospects.
Yeah, one of the things I heard that somebody was tinkering with these mechanics, and just reading what some scouts said, they said it didn't even look like the same pitcher.
Yeah,
his arm. He was releasing the ball at different angles and stuff, and I don't know who suggested that, but I hope they went back to old film and just say, leave this kid alone and just go back to the pitcher he was 2 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, and did you see that we signed Greg Bird to a minor league contract?
Yeah, I mean, he was with Toronto, and from what I understand, they were going to put him on the 40-man roster, and they wanted to send him to, I think, the AAA team in Syracuse. And he said, I'd rather play for the Yankees. So, he's back in AAA with the Yankees. And he had a big year last year in the minor leagues. I wasn't even aware of. I think with Colorado, he had 27 homers and 102 RBIs.
Wow. Yeah.
So
years ago, he was the Yankees' number 1 hitting prospect ahead of Gary Sanchez and everyone else that had come up.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking those foot injuries, the injuries he had never really he was never 100%. So, it was a good pickup because it's high reward, low risk, and maybe they can get something out of him. I hope they do.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how guys like Luke Voit, Gary Sanchez will do this year with other teams, and especially Clint Frazier. I'm really hoping Frazier has a great year with the Cubs. Yeah,
I mean, he'll get a shot, and he'll grow his hair long, and they'll love him in Chicago. He'll be a fan favorite.
Yeah.
And Voigt's a good player. I mean, Voit played well for the Yankees, and I'm sure he'll go out to San Diego and hit 30-some home runs. And Sanchez needed a change, and hopefully with Minnesota, he plays well and, can get his career back on the right track, because it wasn't going to happen with the Yankees.
No, and it's like Miguel Andujar is another one. I was huge fans of Frazier and Andujar, and I'm hoping the Yankees trade Andujar this year. I would really like to see him get an opportunity to play every day somewhere, because I think he's got the talent. Yeah,
this has been going on for like 3 or 4 years. It's time to, it's time to move on, because if he stays with the Yankees, he's just going to be, on the shuttle from Scranton up and down, and it's not really helping his career at this point.
No, and the only other right-handed rookie to have a better rookie season than Miguel Andujar was Joe DiMaggio for the Yankees. I mean, that's pretty good company.
Yeah, and then the next year they don't like your fielding, so yeah, for his sake, we always talk about it. For his sake, I hope he just goes to another team. I don't know if his trade value is too high now, but it's time to move on. Yeah, but I think you're right. I think at some point this year, prior to the All-Star break or before the trading, they'll go out and get another starter. I think they probably have to. Yeah. I mean, we'll know a little more in a month or so, because right now it's these pitchers, they're only going to go 3 or 4 innings, so we'll have to see how it plays out. Yeah, and we were talking off air that the Donnie Baseball, there was a documentary on the Major League Network about Donnie, and really, really good documentary. If no one's seen it, they should check it out. It just showed you how good of a teammate he was behind the scenes. I was telling you, when Bernie Williams first came up, a lot of the guys on the team were hazing him, teasing him. They would call him names like Bambi because of the glasses. And Don Mattingly put a stop to it right away and took Bernie under his wing. And at one point he told him, "You're a really good player, but you could be a lot better. You just got to work on A, B, C, and D." And Bernie said that was a turning point in his career, and that's when he began to take off, because he said having Donnie in his corner and helping him out really, really changed the course of his career. Yeah, from what I understand, the player who was really on Bernie's case was, the world-class piece of shit scumbag Mel Hall.
Oh, absolutely. He's a bully.
And all you do is have to Google Mel Hall and see what a kind of person he is. I remember he would just, mock Bernie all the time, tell him to shut up, and, you don't even belong on the team. And, this is the kind of players that the Yankees had from 89 through 92 when they were just awful.
Yeah, and Donnie said there was a lot of players on that team that just didn't feel like playing some days they just didn't feel like playing, and he even told guys, if you don't want to be in the lineup, you don't want to play, get off the team, and it was when Buck Showalter became manager. Buck actually, him and Donnie just, talked about what guys had to go, what guys they should keep, and what guys they should target to bring in. And the kind of guys they want to bring in were guys who hated to lose. Yeah. And,
Buck did a great job with the Yankees. I mean, when he got to the team, he just changed the philosophy, and that's when they really started to, work the count and take pitches. And, I mean, some of the players they had from 89 through 92, they had Matt Noakes, and they had Bob Guerin and Steve Sachs, Alvaro Espinosa, Mike Blowers, Roberto Kelly, Mel Hall, and it was just, it was just a bad era.
That's like one of the best trades they made was trading Roberto Kelly to get Paul O'Neill from the Reds. That was a big trade. We brought in Paul O'Neill was one of my favorite players at the time.
Yeah, I mean, Roberto Kelly was a good player, but Paul O'Neill was a great Yankee. He was a great Yankee.
And he hated to lose, and Donnie was the one that suggested going and signing Wade Boggs. I didn't know that. That was the other thing in the documentary.
Yeah, I mean, that's when it started to turn, 93. They were in first place when the strike hit by like 8 games.
Yeah.
Or 94. The 93 they contended. They were tied for first place going into September numerous times. 94, they were ahead by 8 games when the strike happened in mid-August. 95, they made the playoffs. So
and Donnie said if the strike didn't happen in 94 and they made the playoffs, he said he would have retired after that season in 94. But since the strike happened, he decided to come back for 95, and he said he was glad he did. But he almost, if that strike didn't happen, Donnie might have retired in 94.
Yeah, I mean, if I remember correctly, they were ahead by 8.5 games.
Yeah, and he said the team was rolling.
Yeah. So, anybody who watched the Yankees, we know what a great player Mattingly was. And before he got injured, he was, might have been the best player in baseball, Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Yeah, and in 1993, Donnie was batting fifth, and he was struggling, and he went into Buck's office, and they told Buck, I think you should drop me down in the lineup. He's like, I'm killing the team. And Buck closed the door and was like, are you telling me where I should bat you and who I should bat where? And Donnie was like, I'm killing us right now. And Buck was like, I'll bat you where I want to bat you. And Donnie picked up his game after that, but it was just the kind of relationship that Donnie and Buck had was a lot closer than the media portrayed.
Yeah, after Mattingly, with a couple of years, he had 17 home runs a few years. But, I mean, there was a year he only had 5 home runs. He just couldn't drive the ball like he used to. He was still a good hitter, but he just had trouble driving the ball.
Yeah, and also in the documentary, in 95, there was 3 weeks left in the season, and he went to Buck's office, and he told Buck, he's like, I'm just going to go all out. I'm going to let it rip. He's like, if my back falls apart, it falls apart. If it falls apart 2 games in, so be it. He's like, but I'm going to go all out. And the Yankees, the last 3 weeks, won 18 of 22 games, and Donnie led the team in batting average during that stretch, including hitting a home run in that last game against Toronto.
Yeah, that was, I remember they were like 4 or 5 games out of the wild card going into September. And, just like you said, they went crazy in September to make the playoffs. I remember Pat Kelly having a big home run. And, it's good memory.
That's like I was fortunate. I've told you before, I went to that first playoff game in 95. And Donnie went 2 for 4, including having what would be the game-winning hit in the bottom of the 6th. He had an RBI single to score Bernie to put him up 3-2. And then in Game 2, he hit that home run to give the Yankees the lead 3-2. I mean, he really came through at the end of that season and ended in the wild card series, batting .417 with a homer and 7 RBIs.
Yeah. I remember the first game when I was there, and the fans were going crazy, and Ruben Sierra hit the grand slam. And then they went out to Seattle and fell apart.
Yeah, Donnie said that those 3 games, he said, went so quick. It was like they didn't even know what happened. They were feeling so good. They thought they'd win the series, and then it happened so quick.
Yeah, that's a painful memory. I remember the one game, I think they had, Scott Kamenicki pitching or Bob Wickman, and they had a 4-run lead, and they lost that. And Bernie homered from both sides of the plate. And then the game 5 when they couldn't get Edgar Martinez out. And,
Yeah, Game 5.
Those games, and it was bad.
Yeah, and Donnie in Game 5, he had a double to put the Yankees ahead, and then, like you said, Edgar Martinez, who they couldn't get out, wound up knocking in Griffey to win the game. I mean,
Yeah, they had a 4-2 lead in Game 5.
And Buck Showalter said in Game 2 when Donnie hit that home run, the stadium was shaking so bad. He said a lot of people thought I came out of the dugout, to watch Donnie round the bases. He goes, but the dugout, the concrete in the dugout was starting to chip. And he's like, I didn't want the dugout to crumble on me. But it's a great documentary. It just shows you what kind of guy he was in the clubhouse. I mean, he really was the definition of a captain and a great teammate.
Yeah, it was. It was a good era of Yankee baseball. It was frustrating in the '80s, but Mattingly was Winfield and Henderson. They were fun to watch. They had a lot of talent.
Yeah, you had Ricky Henderson leading off, Willie Randolph batting second, Donnie third, and Winfield fourth. I mean, that was best 1 through 4. I remember in the '80s. It was just fun to watch. I mean, the Yankees scored the most runs of any team in the '80s. It was just their pitching. Yeah,
George was going crazy. He couldn't keep anybody, and he traded everybody. Yeah. They won more games in the '80s than anybody, but they just there was no wild card then, so they could just never get over. Toronto had great teams, Detroit, and they could just never get over the hump.
Yeah. Oh, and Hal Steinbrenner, or Hank. Hal. He was in the documentary, and he said in 1989 they're at the airport, and Donnie said to him, he's like, you got to tell your father to stop trading away our best prospects to try to win now. He's like, we need to start developing some players. And Hal said he'll never forget that conversation he had with Mattingly. But even Donnie was frustrated that George was trading away all their best prospects to try to get the big-name players.
Yeah, and in New York sports history, they've done it in all sports. They always bring in players maybe 3 or 4 years after their peak.
Yeah.
And they do it in every sport. I mean, the guys are still good and productive, but they're not, not great players anymore because they want marquee players in New York, and a lot of times it backfires.
Yeah. Did I thought I heard that there was an old-time Yankee that passed away recently. I might be mistaken now. I forget his name. Did you hear anything about that?
Ralph Terry passed away.
Okay.
Yeah, he won Game 7 of the '62 World Series, and I won't mention 1960. And he was also an outstanding golfer. And yesterday, Johnny Ellis passed away.
Okay, that's who I heard.
Yeah, he played with Thurman, and Big John Ellis. He played first base. He was a catcher. He was New London, Connecticut, big, strong guy. The memory I have of him, I remember the Yankees when Vida Blue was having his big year.
Yeah.
And in the 7th inning, he got up and hit a double against Vida Blue to hit the Yankees scored 4 runs that inning, and he was on second base, and he was like had his arms upraised, and he was like flexing his muscles, and and then the bullpen blew the game, but and he was involved in the big trade with Cleveland. When the Yankees got Nettles and. Fritz Peterson was in that, and a few other guys, and Chambliss, and he was in one of those trades. So he had a good long career, and I guess off the field he did a lot for people in the Connecticut area. So he was well loved in his hometown, and he gave back a lot. So
yeah. Oh, and also Gerald Williams passed away this past February.
Yeah, I remember him with the Yankees. One of the things I remember, I remember seeing him turn on a fastball from Randy Johnson, and he pulled it like it went foul, but it went out of the stadium. He pulled it down the left field line. It was like he was like a physical specimen. I mean,
oh yeah. I remember seeing him when I went to a Yankee game and watching him toss warm up, just tossing the ball in the outfield, and you could hear the pop when Bernie Williams would catch it from him. I mean, he had a rifle of an arm, and he was just unbelievably cut. I mean, he had muscles everywhere for a guy of his frame.
I know I had a friend just a couple of weeks ago said he looked better in a baseball uniform than anybody. He looked like a ball player.
Yeah, because I remember it was between Bernie Williams and Gerald Williams who was going to be their future center fielder, and it was Bernie that eventually won out.
Yeah, and I think, Gerald went to the Rays and some other teams, and he had a nice career. Then he come back with the Yankees later in his career. But, young guy, sad. Good friends with Jeter, helped with the Turn 2 Foundation. It's, it's very sad.
Yeah, and getting back to this year, the Yankees, they, of course, they got Boston, then they got Toronto, but they got teams like Baltimore, Detroit, Cleveland, Kansas City, Texas. They could really get off to a good start against some of these teams if they can beat up on them. It'd be a nice change of pace. And, the last few years they've gotten off to slow starts.
Yeah, I think they'll have a good team. They'll be fun to watch. There's new faces, and and there's some new optimism. They needed some new blood. Give some new blood a chance to perform.
Yeah, and if Josh Donaldson, if you can even get anywhere close to what he's usually, what he can do, I mean, that'd be a nice pickup. I mean, I think he won the MVP in 2015 or something like that.
Yeah, he was a tremendous player then. And I mean, I still think, you can get 25 homers, 80 RBIs out of him if he stays healthy and good defense. So, if everybody can perform up to their capabilities, they don't have to play fantastic. Just play like, the back of the baseball card, as they say. I mean, the Yankees will be all right.
Yeah, I mean, and if Stanton and Judge stay healthy this year, I mean, those two guys can really produce.
Yeah, they should hit a lot of home runs, just like the Yankees always do. So I'm excited. I think they can be better than they can be as good as the fans hope they are.
Yeah,
or they could win 7 games. So.
Yeah, Aaron Judge last year played 148 games, Stanton 139, and Judge hit 39 home runs, Stanton hit 35, and they're both just a couple of RBI shy of 100. So, I mean, and that was because, I mean, no one was on base. I mean, I think this year they'll have more opportunities to drive in runs, and I can see those two guys having a monster year if they stay healthy.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things why I like Stanton as a player. I mean, he's a great player, and I think he's still got a lot of good years in him. And I think with Judge, he got lowballed a little bit because, maybe when it comes time the arbitration in June, and maybe if he has an injury, it's all about the money, and the owners just want to save every penny they can.
Yeah, and I'm pulling up the stats from last year. Gleyber Torres batted .259 on the year. I'm trying to see what he did after the All-Star break. He actually had a better second half Torres, batted .289. It'd be nice to see a lot of these guys, have good years. I mean, LeMahieu last year in the second half only batted .266. So these guys can have a bounce back year just to play up, like you said, to their back of their cards. They're going to score some runs.
Yeah, it should be a fun year. It's always great to talk Yankee baseball.
Oh yeah, and sometime same time next week. But before we go, we got Severino today. Then Montgomery finishes up the series against Boston, and then Taillon, Cortez, and Cole to start the Toronto series.
So, something to look forward to. I'm glad, they got everything settled, and, we can talk some baseball.
Yeah, next week we'll have a better understanding of how who's playing where and what their strategy might be going forward as far as the batting order.
Yep. Well, look forward to talking to you next week, Robert. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Yes. And to all you fans out there, we'll see you next week.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.